Hello and welcome to Kivy School. This is part 2 of the KivyWhisper GUI app, and let's get started. Right now we're at part 2, which is finish the Kivy GUI. What the app should look like. This version is saved as midpoint1.py, so let's check it out. On midpoint1.py. As you can see, this is what our app looks like from part 1. There's 3 buttons and then our main button right here. And then now we're building the Kivy app. So we added a file chooser, and the problem is that it only shows the F drive. I wanted to show all the drives. So in midpoint 2a, you can see all you had to do to use a file chooser is file chooser : I gave it an ID, which is FC for file chooser, and then I picked file chooser icon layout. We want to choose other drives, right? The first question is, how do you know what drives exist? So let's go back to the PowerPoint. Here it says the psutil package from Python, it's a basic package, has a disk partitions function. It works on Windows and Linux and hopefully Mac, because I have not tested on Mac. But it looks like this. Install psutil and then import psutil and then say psutil.diskpartitions. Then you see it shows C and F drive, right? So it's all the drives on my machine. Then how do I check for what devices there are? Because these are not strings, right? If you want to check what device it is, you can just say, okay, get an element of this list and then say .device. And it gives me C drive. And if you get the element right here, which is the first element, because we counted 0, then you say .device, it will say F drive. So things to do. How do you change the file chooser's drive? How do you make a dropdown to change the file chooser drive? In addition, we still need to select a file, but we've already used the file chooser, and I've explained in part 1, we don't need to make the text file markdown compliant anymore. So how do you change the file chooser's drive? So I saw online it says you just need to change the filechooser.path value. And you can see right here, it says how to use file chooser to access files outside of C drive. Just change filechooser.path value. Then you can see right here, filechooser.path D, right? E, F, G. Okay, so now let's keep going. So for this app, what I did was I used PDB to figure out how to get to the file chooser widget by pressing the button, right? Which is this button. And then I said, okay, on release, import PDB and set trace. And then you can see right here, I've released it, and then PDB is running, right? And then as usual, you check self, you check root, you check root IDs. And then here I saw root is going to be the box layout, right? And then the box layout IDs, I see FC, which is the ID I assigned to the file chooser earlier, right? And then I said, okay, but if you do root.IDs filechooser.path, right? Then it tells me the path, it's F drive, right? So now we have the path, which is F drive. We can just set the path, which will be root.IDs fc.path equals to C drive. And then that will change the file chooser drive to C drive, right? So again, check cell, check args, which I forgot to type here. You should always check args as well. Parent is a good one to check, root is a good one to check. So here it says, from the button, I can already reach file chooser using root.IDs fc, and I can modify the path as well. So again, we're still trying to change the file chooser drive. Now to make a dropdown widget, to choose drive. And then dropdown rule number 1, never use dropdown in KV. Dropdown code is saved as midpoint2a.py. We can go right here, Python midpoint2a.py. And you can see right here, I set the drive, there's C drive and there's D drive. It doesn't do anything right now, but I have C drive and D drive available. So this is midpoint 2, and let's keep going. One thing I learned is that dropdown is the wrong widget. We should use a Kivy spinner. I keep forgetting it exists, right? Because sometimes there are just widgets and you shouldn't use the basic widget. You should always use the correct widget that fits your use case. So here, the Kivy spinner, all it does is it has a button. And when you click the spinner, it has several selections. And then when you select one selection, the spinner, it picks that choice. So it's really good for the use case that I have, which is just to choose one drive out of the multiple drives you have. So again, how do you get the spinner code to work in KV? One thing, this is not required for Spinner, but this is required for me to get this working in KV. You have to import psutil. And this is how you import it. You import psutil as psutil. This lets you import psutil in KV code, and I don't want to change the name. I just want to make it as similar to Python as possible. So that's how you do it. You import psutil as psutil. And then here you can see the spinner requires some values. And this values is going to be a list of entries, right? So what did I do here? I used the list comprehension. So this is just a list comprehension as shown earlier. psutil.thisPartitions gets a list of drives. Do you see right here? It's a list of drives, right? Now, if you call .device on an element of the psutil.thisPartitions, you get the drive name, right? Get the drive name. Later on, I will show it to string. But now you have several values that are drive names for elements used in our spinner, right? And this is the spinner code. The list comprehension explained. It's a list comprehension. It creates a list, which is what the spinner widget needs for values. And then list comprehension syntax. Variable for variable in a list if Boolean, right? Right now, I'm just using variable for variable in list. So what am I doing here? Choose drive plus variable.device for variable in psutil.thisPartition. So here is the list. This is the main part. From the beginning, the list I'm applying list comprehension to is psutil.thisPartitions. However, the elements in that list are not strings and would not be displayed correctly in the spinner widget. I need to convert the elements in psutil.thisPartitions to a string and display that in my spinner widget. I have already shown that you can convert an element of psutil.thisPartitions to a string using .devices, right? If you say .device, it says C. And if you check the type, it says it's a string. So I can display this, the .device elements, as entries for the spinner. But I cannot say, okay, this one, these entries, because they're not strings. So again, variable is just a random variable name for the elements in psutil.thisPartitions. Anything I do to variable will be applied before the for keyword, right here. So here's an analogy. It's like feed creature for creature in dogs in park. So dogs in park is a list of dogs. And creature is the variable to reference elements in the list of dogs in the park. And feed creature is what you want to do. As a result, you have a list of creatures that have been fed, which in this case are dogs. And the result will look like this. Bear, Belle, Bella, Birdie, Bling, and Blue. And you know that these are all dogs, and they have been fed already. So similarly, for every device in psutil.thisPartitions, I will modify the list to return elements of this form, right? Choose drive plus var.device. So it's just string concatenation. You have two separate strings, and then you make one big string. And you can see the list right here, right? Choose drive C, choose drive F, choose drive K. And then this is because the list must be displayed in the spinner as a text for each option. So this is the main spinner button. And then you can see choose drive C, that's an option. Choose drive F is an option. Choose drive K is an option. The spinner choices are done. Now we need to change the file chooser path and make those buttons actually work. So here I just say the drive letter is self.text.replace choose drive. All this does is remove the choose drive text in front. So example, choose drive right here, I added it just to display to the user, but I don't actually want to use it as a path. I just want to get the C drive directly. So if you just replace it, you're just removing it. And then here we go, root IDs, file chooser. This is FC, which is the ID that I have given to the file chooser in the KV. .path equals drive letter. This will set the file chooser to change drive to the chosen spinner element. This was already shown in the last part, right? Where you can get to the file chooser from your button. So in the recap, how do you change the file chooser's drive? All you need to do is say .path. We did not need to use a dropdown. The correct widget is a spinner, and we can use a spinner to change the file chooser drive. In addition, we are already using a file chooser, and then I've shown we don't need this anymore to make text file markdown compliant. So the progress here is saved as midpoint2b.py. So let's check it out. So here's the code for midpoint2b.py. It's not that crazy. Basic imports, psutil. Then here's just the code for the spinner. Here's the values list. And then on text, it just says, let's set the path for file chooser. So you can see right here, I can choose between the C drive, or I can choose D drive. I can choose C drive, or I can choose D drive, right? And it works. So now there's that. We can choose drives. We can also choose files. And now the next thing to do is make these buttons work. That will be part 3. We're going to connect Whisper AI and Kivy preparation. Thank you for watching. This has been Kivy School.